$88 million. Just gone, wiped out entirely. And listen, this wasn't from people clicking on shady phishing links or falling for some random scam. This money was drained from people who did absolutely everything right. We're skipping all the usual pleasantries today because we're dropping straight into a massive human disaster. We're talking a catastrophic failure of trust, technology, and honestly, accountability. I mean, just look at that number. 88 million bucks in Bitcoin, vanished into thin air. Hold on to that figure for me, because this isn't just some abstract code glitch we're talking about. This money was taken from people who followed every single paranoid security rule the crypto industry ever gave them. They bought the right hardware, they hid it away in vaults, they completely trusted the system, and they still lost everything.
All right, part 1, Tim Lamb's desperate weekend.
So picture this, meet Tim Lamb. It's Friday, and he's states away on a family holiday when news suddenly breaks that his highly trusted hardware wallet, the Coldcard, has a severe vulnerability. Now, Tim spends Friday and Saturday completely paralyzed with anxiety, right? He's agonizing over whether he should abandon his family trip and just fly home. Finally, by Saturday evening, he makes a desperate move and calls a trusted neighbor who has a spare key to his house. Sunday morning rolls around, he's on the phone, walking that neighbor through his home. They find the metal plate where his seed phrase is stamped, and he manages to restore his wallet. Zero balance. The wallet had already been drained Saturday afternoon, literally hours before he even formulated a plan to ask for help.
And here's the thing that really gets you. Those 2 Bitcoin, they weren't just some casual investment. They were meant for his 2 children. They represented years of meticulous saving for his kids' future. When Tim actually talks about this, he literally tears up just thinking about the loss. This is real human grief. This is a dad realizing that the future he built for his children just evaporated in an instant, all while he was completely helpless on a family vacation. And this is exactly where the entire illusion of physical security just completely shatters. I want you to meet Jonathan Goodman. Jonathan went even further than Tim. His device was locked inside a literal bank safety deposit box. I'm talking completely air-gapped, never once connected to the internet, and never touched by a single human being other than him. It was the textbook perfect definition of ultimate cold storage. $1.6 million, drained anyway. And look, Tim and Jonathan are not isolated cases. Over on Reddit, victims were sharing these absolutely devastating stories. One person spent 8 solid years aggressively stacking Bitcoin to protect against their home country's currency collapse. They watched 2 Bitcoin disappear and said they're just done with the space entirely. Done. Another user had just finally hit their massive life goal of saving 1 full Bitcoin, only to see it gone in that exact same week. They wrote about this crushing, overwhelming guilt, just feeling like they completely let their families down. Which brings us to part 2, March 2021, the fatal update. So, you're probably wondering, how on earth does a device sitting inside a bank vault actually get hacked? Well, it all traces back to a standard firmware update that's shipped with a silent, fatal flaw. Basically, when you set up a hardware wallet, it relies on real physical hardware randomness to generate your unique secret keys. But because of this specific update, certain cold cards just stopped using that hardware randomness. They quietly fell back to a weaker, highly predictable method to generate the wallet seed. And because that randomness was broken, attackers didn't even need to break into Jonathan's bank vault. They could just mathematically figure out the seed from the outside, from anywhere in the world, without ever touching the physical hardware. Think of it like this. Imagine you buy a massive steel vault. You test the reinforced walls, you test the heavy steel doors, and you are totally convinced it's impenetrable. But none of that actually matters if the factory that made your key also printed copies for someone else, right? Every single layer of outward security these victims could physically verify, they did. But they couldn't verify the invisible math generating the key inside the device itself. Now, here is where the story gets absolutely wild. This bug sat completely undetected, entirely untouched for 5 long years. Then, an independent researcher prompts an AI language model called Claude Code to just go ahead and check the public code for vulnerabilities. 8 minutes. It took an AI exactly 8 minutes to flag a devastating flaw that human developers missed for half a decade. 8 minutes to find the bug that drained $88 million. It's almost unbelievable. And once that flaw was exposed, the internet went straight to work. The Reddit community aggressively dug into the public open source code history.
because, code commits are fully public and timestamped. These investigators followed the digital paper trail right back to 2021. They pinpointed the specific developer who introduced the flawed randomness into the code, along with a related flawed change that followed a year later. A permanent, completely public record of exactly when this catastrophic mistake was made and exactly who made it.
So naturally, everyone is demanding accountability right now. Even Binance founder CZ weighed in on this. Because years ago, Trust Wallet had almost this exact same bug, a broken random number generator that resulted in roughly $12 million in losses. And CZ publicly pointed out that Trust Wallet stepped up and financially covered every single affected user. They paid their victims out of pocket. They made them whole.
But guys, look at the reality we're actually dealing with here. When you put your valuables in a traditional bank's safety deposit box, there's an entire infrastructure of insurance and institutional backing if the bank fails you. Coinkite, the company that actually manufactures the Coldcard, is a hardware team of like 10 people. A 10-person team does not have an $88 million bailout fund hidden in the back room to pay out claims of this magnitude. It is the exact same broken promise as the Trust Wallet bug, but this time, there's absolutely no corporate bailout waiting underneath to catch anyone.
Tim Lamb is still out there desperately hoping for some kind of repayment. Jonathan Goodman followed every single rule the community handed him, and yet nobody official has stepped up to explain why a vulnerability this massive took 5 years to discover, or who is actually going to take responsibility for the shattered lives left in its wake. So what happens when thousands of people trust their entire life savings to a piece of metal and a locked box, only to find out the company behind the curtain has zero safety net? Honestly, who pays the price when the illusion of security finally breaks?